What CEO? You're just putting on airs. Why don't you fess up and tell the truth already? The classmate who arrived late to the reunion laughed at me mockingly. Just like in high school, I thought people's perceptions of me would change now that I'm a company CEO, but his arrival made me realize I hadn't changed one bit. Hey everyone. This guy claims he's a CEO, but the truth is, he exposed the truth about me to all the gathered classmates. And so I ended up fleeing the reunion. But this classmate was actually the one harboring a secret he couldn't tell anyone. I would only learn this after a fateful encounter brought about by various coincidences. Johnson, we heard that. That's amazing. Tell us more. Classmates swarmed around me, saying things like that. Suddenly, I was the center of attention. My name is Bob Johnson, 30 years old. Today, I'm at my high school's first reunion since graduating. Among the classmates gathered, there are some friends I've gone drinking with from time to time. But for the most part, it's been 12 years since I've seen most of them. People look so mature and different that I only recognize them when they say their names. Look, that guy over there apparently became the youngest department head ever. And that girl from drama club has been in several big stage productions. A friend in the know filled me in on what our classmates are up to these days. I've been so busy with work, I haven't had the bandwidth to pay attention to much else. Learning about my classmates' impressive activities piqued my interest. But it was also my friend's words that made me the center of attention. Everyone's doing amazing things. What are you talking about? Bob, aren't you the CEO of a company? Hey, not so loud. The moment he said that, the classmates around us all turned to look, and in an instant, I was surrounded. You became a CEO. It's Johnson, right? That's incredible. Tell us more. Do you remember me? Well, actually, getting peppered with questions from all sides, I was at a loss for words. But on the inside, I was honestly feeling extremely pleased. In high school, I was an unremarkable presence in class. Average grades, average looks, and I wasn't the best at communicating either. Plus, I had some family circumstances back then. Not wanting people to pry into that, I deliberately avoided getting close to others. Some classmates even looked down on me for it. Speak up more. Nice sob story. Here's $1. I'm giving it to you out of pity, so pick it up. My few friends stood up for me, but others either pretended not to notice or just whispered amongst themselves from a distance. Even after this reunion started, they acted like Johnson. Was there a guy like that? But look at them now. The moment they heard I'm a company CEO, they did a complete 180. Of course I felt good about it, but that feeling only lasted a moment. Hey, what kind of company do you run? An online retailer of imported home goods. Whoa, that sounds cool. Since when? 3 years ago. What's your annual income? My annual income is. I was at a loss for an answer. The classmates who had been grilling me looked puzzled, like what's wrong? Inwardly, I was desperate to escape this situation. This is why I hadn't planned to reveal that I'm a company CEO. Because the truth is, right now I'm, can I have a moment? Actually. Suddenly, a loud voice rang out behind me. Ha! Some CEO you are. Everyone there turned as one to look toward the voice. Standing there was a tall man wearing what looked like a high-end jacket. His hair neatly styled. The kind of good-looking guy that made the women's eyes light up in an instant. But his face was twisted into such a mean smirk, it overshadowed his well-groomed appearance. Williams. I only knew one person who would make a face like that. Ethan Williams. The classmate who looked down on me the most in high school. He grinned even more, as if affirming he was right. Geez. No good, Bob Johnson. Trying to trick everyone. Trick. I didn't mean to. Then why didn't you just tell the truth from the start? Oh, I get it. Getting fond over all of a sudden went to your head and you couldn't bring yourself to say it. That's so like a poor person. He was exactly the same as before. Williams, whose family ran a big real estate company, always looked down on me as poor. He even found out about the family situation I'd been hiding and arbitrarily exposed it in front of everyone. Hey everybody. This guy claims to be a CEO, but he's poorer than your average salaryman. His business is totally failing and loses money every month. Williams announced loudly, as if it was the most amusing thing. projecting his voice so the whole venue could hear. "There, I said it for you, Johnson. You're welcome, right? It was gonna come out eventually anyway." Yeah, what Williams said was entirely true. I'd always loved foreign home decor, gazing at it longingly in magazines and on TV. That interest led me to start an online retailer of imported home goods 3 years ago. But it only went well at first. Gradually sales declined and profits trended downward. Purchasing costs ballooned, and recently it's been losing money every month. So even though I'm called a CEO, I'm not at all successful. I was about to honestly reveal that when Williams showed up late. I checked out the website your company runs too. What's with that totally tasteless product lineup? No wonder it doesn't sell. As the future CEO of Williams Real Estate, I'm studying this stuff. I could give you some business advice if you want. Oh, but don't even think about asking for a loan, okay? I'm not about to invest in a business with no future and take on debt myself. The moment Williams mentioned loans, the classmates murmured, "Huh." Then, like a receding wave, they conspicuously started to distance themselves from me. In an instant, the only one still by my side was the friend I'd been talking to from the beginning. "He has loans." Hey, what the? I kinda feel deceived. Even if they didn't say it outright, everyone was giving off "I don't want to get involved with this" vibe as they gawked at me from a distance. Seeing that, Williams looked satisfied as he smirked. It was like I'd time-slipped right back to high school. "Bob, just because I revealed I'm a CEO myself," my friend said apologetically. I told him don't worry about it, but I was in no mood for a reunion anymore. "Sorry, but I'm gonna head out." To put it bluntly, I ran away. "Hey, I heard a rumor that Williams Real Estate is actually..." "Is it true that?" I heard whispers from somewhere as I was leaving the venue, but I was too pathetic for running away to pay them any mind. "Right, it's still..." I grimaced reflexively as I exited the hotel that had been the venue. It was brighter outside than I expected. Not even 30 minutes had passed since the reunion started at 5 p.m. Guess I'll kill some time somewhere. If I go home too early, who knows what they'll say. I got in my car and deliberately drove in the opposite direction from home. I wanted to clear my head a bit, and I didn't want to hear any lectures from my family I live with. But thinking about it later, coincidence sure is a funny thing. If I hadn't taken this unplanned route, I never would have met her. I spotted her when I was waiting at a red light. Huh? Across the intersection, about 150 feet ahead on the sidewalk, was a figure moving strangely, stumbling side to side with unsteady steps, like she was dead drunk. She looked like she might fall over or step into the road any second. I couldn't take my eyes off her. "Is she okay?" Oh whoops. That's when I noticed the light had long since turned green. The car behind me honked, and I hurriedly accelerated. But right after that, what the? Startled, I quickly pulled over to the shoulder. The person who had been staggering along the sidewalk had collapsed face first onto the ground, right as she was passing my car. "Are you all right?" I jumped out of the car and ran over to the collapsed figure. Luckily she seemed conscious, straining her arms to try to get up on her own. But partway through, her strength gave out and she collapsed to the ground again. "Hannon there, are you feeling sick?" As I supported her and spoke to her, she replied in a faint voice, "I'm sorry. I'd really appreciate a little help." "Yes, of course." From her voice, I realized for the first time it was a young woman. She wore an ill-fitting, well-worn sweatshirt and tattered, messy short hair, along with pants that were also the wrong size, frayed at the knees. At a glance, the woman's appearance was so shabby you couldn't even tell her age or gender. But the moment she slowly sat up, gripping my hand, seeing her face, I let out an involuntary gasp. "I'm sorry." "Thank you." I got a bit dizzy there. "No worries." Could she be suffering from some illness? She had dark circles under both eyes. Her pale cheeks were sunken and gaunt, and she was younger than I expected. Despite how painfully emaciated she was, you could still clearly tell she had well-defined, beautiful features. The kind that would put models and actresses to shame if she cleaned herself up and recovered her health. I saw you from a bit ago. You didn't seem to be walking steadily, and it concerned me. Should I call an ambulance?" Overwhelmed by her beauty, I timidly asked. Then the woman shouted, in a sharp voice far louder than you'd expect from her frail body, "No hospitals. Huh? Oh, sorry. The truth is, I'm a bit short on money right now. So she couldn't afford to go to the hospital. The woman mumbled softly, hanging her head. And as if that outburst had used up the last of her energy, she slumped limply in my arms with her eyes closed, not moving a muscle. What should I do? Please hang in there. We can figure out the money later. Let's get you to a hospital right away. No, this isn't the time for that. You look awful. Please get in the car. It's not. Huh? My body isn't sick anywhere. It's just what? Faltering as if it was hard to say, a slight blush rose on the woman's pale cheeks. Then, eyes still closed, she confessed as if making up her mind. I haven't eaten anything in 2 days. It seemed she was dealing with some serious circumstances, so for the time being, I decided to have the woman rest at my home. In the car headed to my apartment, I revealed my own situation to reassure her. Actually, I'm currently living with my little sister. She said she won't need to work overtime today, so she should be home by 7:30. With your sister. Is it okay for me to intrude? It's fine. That kid, my sister, she's not the type to ignore someone in need. My sister Sammy, 2 years younger, has always had a strong sense of justice. Sure enough, when I called and told her I had taken in a woman in trouble, she instantly replied, I'll wrap up work and be right there. Wait for me. Just as she said, she came bursting in right after we arrived at the apartment, earlier than planned. Nice to meet you. I'm Sammy Johnson. Welcome to our home. Nice to meet you. Hey, you're too loud. You're gonna startle her. When I tried to calm Sammy down, she retorted without missing a beat. Her? Don't tell me you haven't even asked her name yet. Well, I was in a rush. Not yet. Unbelievable. I bet you didn't introduce yourself either. You're as airheaded as always, and you call yourself a business owner. No wonder your company is… Okay, I get it. My bad. I never win when I get into arguments with Sammy. She always nails me right where it hurts. I cover my ears and surrender. It's a familiar routine in our household. But of course, the woman seeing it for the first time was wide-eyed in surprise. Sorry, we're being so loud. It's always like this. Not at all. Just go away now, Bob. I'll talk to her, so you go make something easy on the stomach. And get the bath ready too. Got it. This apartment is in my name, but Sammy is the de facto head of the household. For certain reasons, I can't stand up to my little sister. I did as I was told, getting dinner and the bath ready. By the time some porridge for the woman was done, Sammy popped into the kitchen. That person said her name is Stella Williams. Huh? Williams? What's wrong? No, just 3 hours ago, someone with that last name had given me a hard time, so I inadvertently grimaced. Just a coincidence, right? That Williams guy and this woman in our home now, Stella. They are unrelated. Convincing myself of that, I asked Sammy. Stella. Could it be she has nowhere to live? No, apparently she lives alone in an apartment in the next town over. But her gas and electricity got shut off because she's behind on bills. She said her family lives in this town, but she doesn't want them to know she's struggling financially. Oh, and she's 24. That's all I could get out of her. No, that's plenty. Leaving it to Sammy was the right call. When I tried to casually ask in the car, Stella wouldn't reveal her circumstances. Given her profession, Sammy is used to listening to people, and she herself has always been good at getting along with new people. Thanks, Sammy. You're a lifesaver. If you really think so, then hurry up and get your company back on track. And take care of that other thing too. Yeah, I got it. Turning away and folding her arms when embarrassed has always been Sammy's habit. Chuckling wryly, I asked her to bring the finished dishes to the living room. After taking her time to finish the porridge, freed from her hunger, Stella finally showed a softened expression. Then, guided by Sammy, she headed to the bathroom. About an hour later, when Stella returned to the living room, I was speechless. Her hair, thoroughly washed and blow-dried, was now beautiful, silky short hair. Her skin, healthier looking after the bath, was the very picture of translucent. And because she was wearing Sammy's clothes, which were a bit small on her, it emphasized that while she was a little too thin, she actually had an incredible figure. Even I, who already knew she was beautiful, was astonished by the absolute beauty that appeared before me. "Oh, you were just gawking at Stella, weren't you, Bob? Well, she is this gorgeous." Popping out from behind Stella, Sammy grinned teasingly at me, hurriedly deflecting with "No, I wasn't." My eyes were still inevitably drawn to Stella as she shyly hung her head. "Really, thank you so much for everything, Bob." "Huh?" My heart leapt at suddenly being called by name. Seeing her chuckling face next to me, I realized Sammy must have told her. Calling you both Mr. and Ms. Johnson would get confusing, right? Especially if we're gonna be living together. Why, Sammy, what's that about? Don't tell me you were planning to send her off after just a meal and a bath. I want to believe my brother isn't that heartless, but... Sammy then revealed what they had discussed in the bathroom. Apparently she had proposed to Stella, "You can stay in this house until you resolve the problems you're dealing with." You just went and got a problem with that. I'm the only one paying rent here right now, you know. Burke. I couldn't say anything to that. With my company in the red, I'm relying on Sammy for not just rent but living expenses too. With such a pathetic brother, I had no choice but to defer to my little sister. I'm asking you to please stay here as long as you like, Stella. No, I couldn't. I'll move out as soon as I can. I'm so sorry about this. No, really. Feel free to stay indefinitely. Stella and I hugged each other. Seeing that, Sammy grinned and said, "Then it's settled. Oh yeah, while you're here, why don't you help him sort out that stuff, Stella?" "That stuff, huh? Don't you think it's a good idea? It'll make Stella feel less like she's imposing too." I led the puzzled-looking Stella to another room. Then, when I opened the door, she stood in the doorway, mouth hanging open in surprise. "I think Sammy already told you I run an imported home goods company, but..." "Yes, could this stuff be?" "That's right. If you don't mind, could you help me sort through it?" Piles of cardboard boxes, nearly reaching the ceiling, filled the room. They were all products I had purchased but failed to sell. At this point, I didn't even know what was where anymore. Sammy had been nagging me, asking how long are you gonna let this stuff take over the room. I had been about to resign myself to tackling the organization. If I'm considering closing the company, I need to figure out how to dispose of this stuff. "You're going to close the company?" I replied to Stella with a wry smile as she timidly asked. I'd get carried away starting a company based on a long-time hobby. In the end, I didn't have the talent for management, so I figure it's about time to call it quits. I can keep inconveniencing Sammy forever. Her career is going well, and she's expected to have a bright future at her job. I'm just her hopeless brother, but I at least don't want to drag her down any more than this. I unconsciously glanced to the side as I said that, and I was startled speechless. At some point, Stella had begun quietly shedding tears beside me. "Is something wrong? You two really get along well, you and Sammy." "Huh? I'm jealous. I'm..." Leaving the rest unsaid, Stella wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and forced a smile, saying, "I'm sorry." I couldn't bring myself to ask the reason for her tears, but I vaguely sensed there must be some circumstances behind it. "Please, let me help out. I'll do my best. I'm the one who should be thanking you." And so it was decided Stella would stay with us in our apartment for a while. She would help me out with work I did from home, like organizing products. About a week later, Stella had completely settled into our household. She gradually opened up about herself not just to Sammy, but to me as well. Through that, I learned she was an incredible person. "I'm so sorry to have you help me move out of my apartment too. I'll definitely pay you back for the costs." No, if anything, I should apologize for having you work for free. With how capable you are, no salary would be enough. "Not at all, I'm not." She was modest, but at this point, Stella had become indispensable to me. After all, she was amazingly good at her job. When I asked her to organize the products, she sorted them with astonishing clarity, making it easy to see what we had and how much. When I was struggling because the income and expenses didn't add up, she glanced over and pointed out that part is wrong, fixing it in no time. Even the product photos to upload online were way better than the ones I took. No matter what I asked, Stella handled it flawlessly. I ended up getting carried away and giving her more and more work. She really is incredible. Compared to her, I'm just so hopeless. "You really are hopeless." Maybe you should switch and make Stella the CEO. Even you, Sammy. I just had to do everything myself at my previous job because we were so short-staffed. But I'm glad it's coming in handy. It lets me repay Bob even a little," Stella said with a bright smile. Now that she was getting proper meals in this house, she steadily regained her health. Her sunken cheeks filled out. The dark circles in her eyes completely vanished. Her beauty was now even more polished than the day we met, with a radiant smile to boot. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely manage a reply. Seeing me suddenly go silent, Stella's expression clouded slightly. "Oh, I'm sorry. That was conceited of me to think I was useful." "Huh? No, not at all. I really can't manage without you anymore, Stella." "What?" "Oh." Her porcelain cheeks flushed pink in an instant. I snapped back to my senses with a start. Did I seriously just say something like a confession to her? "Work? I meant it's a huge help to have you helping out with work." "Oh, of course. I'm so glad I can assist with your job." An awkward atmosphere hung in the air. We couldn't even meet each other's eyes. For some reason, Sammy watched us with a smirk. Then, as if struck by a sudden thought, she piped up, "That's it. Bob, go shopping with Stella tomorrow." "Huh? She's probably running low on daily necessities and stuff by now, right?" "Okay, it's decided. Stella, come to my room for a sec." "Oh, but I have plenty from what I brought from my apartment." Yeah. "Well then, Bob, go to bed early to get ready for tomorrow night." Wrapping up the conversation one-sidedly, Sammy dragged Stella to her room. "Get ready for tomorrow. It's just shopping." Even as I thought that, I had trouble falling asleep that night. Before I knew it, I realized I had spent until daybreak thinking about nothing but Stella. And so morning came, with me having barely slept. Utterly exhausted from lack of sleep, I was sprawled out in the living room. Sammy came out of her room with Stella in tow before heading off to work. "Hey, I told you to go to bed early. You're gonna walk next to Stella looking like that?" "Huh?" My head's pounding. "Spare me the lecture this early." I sluggishly lifted my face to say that. And in that instant, I was wide awake. The first thing that caught my eye was a pure white dress. I'm pretty sure it's the one Sammy had me special order from overseas. Only to lament it's too big, I can't wear it. Stella wore it perfectly, as if it had been made just for her. She even had makeup on, further accentuating her naturally well-defined features. It was like, if you were wearing a suit, Bob, it'd totally look like a wedding. "Sammy. Haha, just kidding. I'm off then." As Stella scolded her, blushing, Sammy quickly slipped out the front door. "Have fun on your date." She tossed out that unnecessary comment at the end. "So, where should we start?" "Let's try that store over there." Even after arriving at the shopping mall, things were still awkward between me and Stella, mainly because of Sammy, and because Stella looked unbelievably beautiful. Look, she's like a celebrity. She's so gorgeous. Every time shoppers passing by whispered to each other like that, I was reminded again how the woman beside me was even lovelier than usual. My heart was pounding so much I could barely hold a conversation. I was starting to feel faint. "Huh? Bob, are you okay?" "What? You've gone completely pale. Sit down here. I'll go buy some water." Looking flustered, Stella sat me on a nearby bench and ran off to find a vending machine. For her, always so calm and easygoing, to be this panicked. Am I really looking that bad? As I pondered that, I clearly started feeling unwell. Guess it is the lack of sleep. I'm so pathetic. These days I rely on her completely for work, and now I can't even handle going shopping with her. Far from helping Stella, I feel like I'm just causing her trouble. The illness made me feel even more pathetic than usual. And who should appear before me in my weakened state but the worst possible person? "You're Johnson, aren't you? The Johnson who tucked tail and ran from the reunion." "Huh?" That mocking tone of voice was all too familiar. Forgetting I was sick, I leapt to my feet. "Williams." As I said his name with distaste, Williams grinned nastily. "What a coincidence. Or rather, I'm surprised you've still got the leisure to shop without a care. For someone drowning in debt. I'm not in debt. I'm barely scraping by, dipping into my savings to cover the deficit. And here I thought you came to the reunion hoping to borrow money from the others." That's why you ran off without a word when I exposed your loans, because you couldn't bear to admit it. He hasn't changed one bit since back then, blowing things out of proportion based on his wild imagination, stating it like it's fact. I bet after I left, he kept on running his mouth in the venue, just like how he spread amusing rumors about my family situation in high school. Speaking of, how's your sister doing? You always had it rough, didn't you, Johnson? Your mom passed away young, and your dad was an alcoholic, right? You never joined any clubs, just worked part-time and did chores day in and day out. That was the one thing I wanted brought up the least, both then and now. Those hardships back then were too painful to let others make light of. And because what Williams said was completely true, I clenched my fists tight. But right then, Ethan, Stella, who had returned at some point, muttered in a daze. Williams's expression instantly changed. Don't know what you're talking about. Wrong person. He spat out those words and took off at a dash, not caring as he bumped into shoppers. Stella, you know him. And Bob, you know my brother. Stella and I looked at each other and asked almost simultaneously. That's when I first learned Stella was Williams's sister. And from her own mouth, everything finally came out. First of all, I'm so sorry for not telling you anything until now. The moment we got back to the apartment, Stella apologized to me. Then her eyes seemed to glisten with tears. I thought I couldn't get you and Sammy, my saviors, involved in my family's troubles. But you took me in, no questions asked. It's okay. Take a deep breath and take your time. Oh, would you like some tea? I'll make it right now. Stella started to cry, seeing me so flustered that Sammy would probably tell me to calm down. Stella seemed to regain her composure. No need for tea. She set me down and began speaking again. My family runs a real estate company called Williams Real Estate. Business used to be quite good, but now we are on the brink of bankruptcy. What? Williams hadn't given the slightest hint of that. Stella seemed to guess from my expression as I was at a loss for words. She gave a pained smile, looking like she might cry any second. Ethan has a lot of pride, so I'm sure he hasn't told anyone. He absolutely wouldn't want anyone to know. According to her, 4 years ago, when the company started to falter, Williams declared to their parents, I'll figure something out. So he strictly forbid them from telling anyone the business was in trouble. Then one day, he suddenly disappeared. He'd get scammed by some fake investment scheme and funneled company funds into it on his own. I'm sure he couldn't bear to face us after that. Their parents only realized the situation after Williams vanished. The company's state worsened and the family's livelihood grew dire. Stella dropped out of college. As most employees were laid off, she desperately picked up skills from accounting to sales, supporting her parents as they tried to keep the company afloat. However, no matter how hard we tried, things only got worse. And so, my parents ended up firing me. It was their way of showing love, in a sense. They kicked Stella out, telling her to forget the company and find happiness somewhere else. She ended up having to make it on her own. But she chose the path of continuing to help her parents. She lived in a cheap apartment in the next town over, cutting her living expenses to the bare minimum. She worked multiple part-time jobs and secretly transferred the money she earned to her parents' account each month. After a year of that lifestyle, she was pushed to her limit. Not eating properly weakened her physically and mentally. She made mistake after mistake and got fired from her jobs one by one. Far from helping her parents, she couldn't even support herself. And then, on the day she finally got fired from her last part-time job, she had lost even the strength to walk. That's when I happened to pass by on my way back from the reunion. I wanted to help my parents, even just a little. But the biggest reason was Ethan. I thought if the company was gone, he'd never come back, to make him atone for his embezzlement. When I asked, Stella shook her head. Teardrops fell on a table with emotion. Because I loved him so much. I knew he was a show-off with a bad attitude and poor reputation, but he was always kind to me. Ever since they were little, he protected her from local boys who teased her. When she was stressing over high school entrance exams, he encouraged her, saying you'll be fine, Stella. For her college exams, he went out of his way to buy her a good luck charm from a distant shrine. When she got her first boyfriend, he made a huge fuss, insisting I'll determine if he's good enough for Stella. The Williams that Stella described was someone I couldn't imagine at all. Still, her tears wouldn't stop. "I want to talk to Ethan again," she sobbed. "I understand." To be honest, I had very mixed feelings. What I was about to do would not only help Stella's parents, but Williams as well. After constantly being looked down on and hurt by his words, wanting to help him was a strange notion. But if it would stop Stella's tears, I needed no greater reason. "Hello, Sammy. I have a favor to ask. Can you come home early today?" Stella looked at me with wide, puzzled eyes as I suddenly started making a call. And that evening, Sammy rushed home and immediately scolded Stella. "Why didn't you tell me sooner that things were this bad?" "I'm sorry, but I didn't want to trouble you and Bob. It's more troubling for you to suffer in silence. Aren't we practically family now? You've been working so hard all alone because you want to help your family, right, Sammy?" As Stella's voice wavered, Sammy hugged her tightly. Then she smiled reassuringly. "Let me help you, Stella. Please." "Okay, but how?" "Hey, Bob. You still haven't told Stella my profession. I thought you would have told her ages ago. What were you doing until I got back?" "Geez. I'm sorry, my bad. I thought to myself that she was ignoring her own forgetfulness, but I held my tongue." As I quelled Sammy's anger, I pleaded, "Sammy, I want you to help Stella and her parents. I'm asking you to. I don't need you to tell me. I'm considered the rising star at my firm, you know." "Firm?" As Sammy looked smug, Stella tilted her head quizzically. Sammy handed her a business card and introduced herself. "Believe it or not, I'm a lawyer." "A lawyer?" I'm short and baby-faced, so most clients are uneasy at first. But once the job is done, they all say with a smile, "I'm so glad I hired Attorney Johnson." That's right, Sammy's profession is a lawyer. And at the law firm she works at, she's an exceptionally talented ace attorney who's already being eyed as a future senior partner candidate despite her young age. It may sound like a doting brother rather than doting parent, but I don't know anyone more reliable than her. So this time too, surely. If you leave it to Sammy, it'll be fine, Stella. But Bob, I don't have any money right now. Don't worry about that. You'll get the company back on its feet and pay her back eventually, right, Bob? Haha, I guess so. I'm the one who asked for Sammy's help, after all. No way. Looking back and forth between us, Stella shook her head, saying I can't let you do that. Sammy suddenly grabbed her hand and led her to the entryway. Sammy, no time to lose. Let's go, Stella. Go. Where? Your family home. Your parents must be worried sick. You need to show them you're okay. And I want to see your brother's room too. What? From there, Sammy's actions were swift. Finding a business card for an investment company in Williams's room, she identified it as a notorious fraud group that had been arrested not long ago. She immediately connected Stella's parents with a victim support group, while simultaneously moving forward with procedures to utilize a system to provide relief for fraud victims. She even gave advice on rebuilding the company. She contacted a business consultant whose case she had handled before and entrusted them with turning the management around. As a result, Williams Real Estate narrowly avoided bankruptcy. Going forward, Sammy would be their attorney, filing a lawsuit to recover the stolen funds. And in the end, Sammy granted Stella's greatest wish. Good thing I had connections with a detective agency. It was tough negotiating after we found out where he was, but when I told him you wanted to see him, he agreed to come. Stella. Saying that, the person Sammy brought before Stella was a haggard Williams, who awkwardly averted his gaze. Ethan. Eyes welling up, Stella pleaded with him. She had wanted to see him for so long. She was always worried about where he was and what he was doing. Their parents couldn't forgive the embezzlement, but the fact that he was their son hadn't changed. They said they'd be happy if he was safe. Let's go back together and apologize to them, she said. But Williams remained silent, not even looking at Stella. Please, Ethan, look at me. It's Stella. Stella clung to Williams, shaking his shoulders. Still seeing no response from Ethan, tears pooled in Stella's eyes. And the moment those tears finally spilled down her cheeks, Williams shoved her away. Eek. Stella. I hurried over and caught Stella as she staggered backwards. At the same time, A rage I'd never felt before surged up within me, not only refusing to listen, but even resorting to violence. I clenched my fists, glaring at Williams's face. That's when. It's okay, Bob. Stella. I'll do it. For both of us. Gently placing her hand over my fist, Stella smiled in my arms. Then she walked up to Williams again. Ignoring me like that. I hate you, Ethan. Along with those words, she slapped him across the face with all her might. Huh? Instantly, Williams's eyes turned to Stella for the first time. Wide with shock, he muttered a single word. Stella, you've gotten so thin. Are you sick or something? Stupid. Tears spilling over again, Stella threw herself against Williams's chest. Pounding on it over and over with her fists, she cried out through her tears. What kind of days she and their parents had been living until now. How painful and lonely her life had been. Losing enough weight to look like this, until meeting us saved her. It was all to protect a place for one single person to come home to. It was all for you, wasn't it? Dad, Mom, and me. Because we wanted you to come back. I can't go back. How could I show my face there after what I did? I thought it would be enough to see your face properly one more time. So today Tears welled up in Williams's eyes too. He shook his head repeatedly. I can't. Hearing that makes it even more impossible for me to return. To think I put Stella through that. How can I face Mom and Dad? If you're honest that you really wanted to save the company, not just your pride, then I'll forgive you. What? You thought if the investment increased your funds, it would save the company, right? But if you talk to Mom and Dad about it, they definitely object. Stella, at the time, you thought that was the best solution, until you realized you'd been scammed. Am I wrong? At Stella's words, Williams's eyes went wide. As if the strength drained from his body, he crumpled to his knees on the ground. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Stella. I'm sorry too, for saying I hate you. The truth is, as Stella embraced him, Williams shook his head. I couldn't hear the rest of their conversation, but one line reached my ears clear as day. I'm gonna work hard from now on so you'll tell me you love me again. Afterwards, Williams went back home with Stella. Apparently, he presented his parents with about half the amount he had embezzled. He said he had saved it up working multiple part-time jobs while he was missing. I'll definitely pay back the rest by working from now on. Saying that, Williams reportedly got on his knees and apologized to his parents. He said he had saved it up working multiple part-time jobs while he was missing. I'm so sorry. And thank you, truly, for helping my sister. He had a completely different attitude than before. Looking refreshed, as if a weight had been lifted, Williams confessed his reason for showing up at the reunion. Knowing my company wasn't doing well, he thought if he could look down on me like in high school again, it would make him feel like his own situation wasn't so bad. He wanted to escape his anxiety and guilt, even a little. Pretty awful, huh? You don't have to forgive me. Just letting me apologize like this is more than I deserve. To those words, I simply replied yeah. I thought whether I could forgive Williams depended on his own actions going forward. As he was leaving, Williams unexpectedly turned back to me. I'm in no position to say this, but take care of Stella, Johnson. Huh? It would be a little longer before I understood what he meant. After that, at her own strong request, Stella officially became an employee at my company. She was brilliant to begin with, and her experience in various positions made her an exceptional asset, doing the work of multiple people. Simi's been telling me all the time lately. I'm starting to feel like I really should switch and make Stella the CEO. When I let that slip, half seriously, Stella laughed. Do you think Sammy actually means that? Huh? She's joking because you're close. The truth is, Sammy. Stella shared Sammy's true feelings that I didn't know. Our mother passed away early, and the shock drove our father to drink. He passed when I was 17. So back then, we were extremely poor. When the high-achieving Sammy said I want to be a lawyer in the future, I chose to get a job out of high school so Sammy could go to college. Ever since then, Sammy had apparently made up her mind. Someday when I achieve my dream, I want Ethan to achieve his dream too. I want to support you however she can so you can do what you want. Sammy is rooting for you to keep being CEO more than anyone. So I won't be switching with you either. Yeah, I know that, I really do. When I smiled, Stella broke into a grin too. To live up to Sammy's feelings, I threw myself into managing the company even more as CEO, and with the help of a strong ally in Stella, I finally overcame the threat of closure. Eventually, as online sales took off, the company grew enough to get an office, small as it was. When I reported that, Sammy congratulated me with the biggest smile. Though my days were going smoothly like that, I actually had a secret worry. It was Sammy this, Sammy and I. The other day, Stella had started talking about Sammy an awful lot. You two have gotten pretty close, and Sammy's always going on about you too. Are you jealous, Bob? Jealous? Is that what this is? As I pondered the true nature of my complicated feelings, Stella giggled. And then, she suddenly whispered in my ear from behind, "Don't worry. The reason I work at this company is to repay you, and because I always want to be with you, Bob." What? I spun around reflexively. Stella quickly stepped back. "Sammy told me, you know." She said, "You're dense, so I'd have to spell it out for you to notice. You encouraged me too, saying go for it, so I tried, just a little." Blushing slightly, she flashed a mischievous grin like her prank had succeeded. It was so adorable, and a feeling I'd never experienced before welled up. Somehow, I felt like they had both given me a push. "Same here. I want you to always be with me, from now on and forever." Huh? Stella turned bright red, not just her cheeks, but her whole face. Then, eyes shining. "Of course, I'd love to," she said, beaming with pure joy. It's hard to notice when someone cherishes you, especially when you're so caught up in your own troubles that you can't see those around you. That's why it's your chance when you do notice. You cherish that person back as much as they cherish you. You think about what you can do to make them happy. If you do that, it'll be okay even if you spend time apart.